I don't know if you know, but I'm a refugee. And then he was like, what? You don't look like a refugee. And so that kind of like started these wheels spinning in my head because um, just because I don't, because I think people, when they think of refugees, they have a very certain like image, of like kids and families in these war torn countries. Um, but then, there is life after that, you know, and I'm kind of like a product of that. And the project that I pitched to my boss at the time was I wanted to also highlight other CNN employees who used to be former refugees to show, everyone that to show a different definition of what it means to be a refugee. And that's what is so great about CNN is that it's such like a global company, and it values all these different backgrounds. And so the people that I highlighted was one woman who was a producer from Nigeria, and another was a woman who family escaped the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia, and another from an Eastern European company. And at the time, Rick Sanchez, his family escaped from Cuba, like he was a anchor at CNN. And so it really opened up people's eyes, and I had to like pitch this up the ranks to these executive producers. So here I am, like an associate producer. I'm like 24 years old, like pitching to all these higher ups, and they get behind it and they become my advocates for the project. And so that was what really put me on the map. And like the next year, like I became a producer. Like that was what I wanted. So
So wait,
yeah.
you're this associate producer. You're doing your daily job. You have this idea because you were triggered in a way, in a good way, by Anderson
Mhm.
Cooper, right? So you have this idea. You're like, okay, I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna write this stuff up and I'm gonna put it. But then, how are you like the executive producers that you pitch to? Is it one person, three people? Is it different teams? How do you go about presenting within the company?
Yeah, it's so I first pitched the idea to my immediate supervisor, and then we pitched it to his boss, which is kind of the boss of the whole department. And she goes, and with me in the room, like, because now she's my advocate, and that's so important, is having advocates. And so she's like, hey, I've got this, up and coming superstar associate producer, and she has a great idea, and I want to share it with you, and we think we should do it. And so and that's how it happened.
And then you have this
And
idea. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, it's just, I think as a young person, like it's so important to have advocates.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So you have it all written up, and you go and you show these different teams, and do
Mhm.
you get it actually produced?
Yeah, so this was a print campaign. And so this was where I produced these like posters that would be shown all over the bureaus of CNN, like in the Beijing bureau and um, the London and Paris bureau. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And then so did you have to get permission from the people that you were spotlighting? Did you have to go talk to them first, and you're like, oh, I have this idea? And then how did you even know that they were refugees?
I just through, word of mouth, I would be like, hey, do you guys know any coworkers who used to be refugees? And from there, it was just like a snowball effect because this was a project that everyone wanted to get on board with, because um, it's so different from what we normally do. And yeah, and Yeah, that's what I just loved about working at CNN was just how international the employees were there, and as big as it was still pretty
Tight,
yeah,
small.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, pretty small and tight. So I didn't have any problems finding subjects at all.